Malaysia Green Building Council, also known as malaysiaGBC, is an organization that promotes green building programs, technologies, and design practices, aims to make Malaysia an eco-friendly and sustainability place on Earth. malaysiaGBC was founded in May 2009 by a group of passionate building consultants, academia, and representatives. Even since Malaysia's building has increased, the efficiency of resources used in each building was built with green in mind. malaysiaGBC is also supported and associated with most of the top industry institutions. In the year 2015, malaysiaGBC became an established member of the World Green Building Council and known to be the only organization in Malaysia to be supported by the World GBC. malaysiaGBC continues to be the platform that networks, promotes, educates, and most importantly, develops the sustainable, built into the land of Malaysia. With much more passionate industry professionals, we can make Malaysia a greener and better place on Earth.
Business Improvement District BIDs, acronym, are a way to reimagine urban areas by using a bottom-up, self-assessed funding model to address urban issues. By collecting a mandatory levy from private stakeholders within defined area, BIDs can fund additional services and projects focused on the area's political economy and members' concerns. Moving beyond traditional top-down urban regeneration approaches, themes like branding, sustainability, and belonging are key to this reimagining process, aiming to improve a district's vitality and viability. Based on the analysis of BIDs to advancing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, we get to discover two hand-picked SDGs enabling progress towards the SDG 8. It's about promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. And SDG 11 is about make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Where this series, we will take this dialogue, coinciding with World Urbanism Day, is an annual observance that can be linked to initiatives like Business Improvement District BIDs, which are private-public partnership formed to revitalize and sustain urban areas through a variety of services. BIDs are funded by property and business owners within a designated district and work to improve the area's economy and quality of life. On World Urbanism Day, many discussions are held that connect urbanism, placemaking, and BID as tools for urban regeneration and community development. Good evening. You are tuning in the evening show with Stephen Poon. I'm your host for this series 7 of Discourse. Once again, in the Vital Room with me, we have the regular team of the malaysiaGBC Academy from Malaysia Green Building Council, MGBC, in collaboration with Solar Energy Research Institute, from the National University of Malaysia, UKM, supported by Mila University. It's live on YouTube now. We have great staff and a little surprise. I'm very excited because we have plenty to share today. Before we get to all of that, let's start on the topic, reimaging places in the city through business improvement district, branding, sustainability, and belonging. Our guest today is a place management specialist with over 15 years experience in the business improvement district BIDs industry in the UK. He is a fellow at the Institute of Place Management IPM, as well as the Royal Society of Arts, Manufacturers and Commerce RSA. He is involved in a variety of organizations, including the BID Foundation, which is TBF, as a founding member, and the Association of the Town and the City Management ATCM as a member. He leads the Brixton BID in South London, as well as Stratford Original BID in East London. He is passionate about places and firmly believes that people make places. Please welcome Gianluca Rizzo.
Stephen, a very good morning to you and everybody listening in.
Hi, Gianluca. Good evening to you. Buonasera dalla Malaysia, and good morning to you in London. Buongiorno e dalle Londra. How are you doing?
Buongiorno. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You just started your day, I believe so. So
yes,
how's your start of morning?
You're ending your day, right?
Yeah, almost at the end. We are in the evening over here. So I believe we had quite a rainy day this afternoon, actually. So I'm not sure about your morning. How was it over there?
I think it's the first time that we woke up with minus degrees, actually. So it's definitely gone cold. It turned into winter for sure.
This is the sign you are in the winter now.
Yes.
This is the sign. Of course, end of the year, usually, very miserable, rainy, very down, sometimes get to very minus cold. I used to live in London, so I understand that.
Yeah,
of course. I've been living in London for quite a bit, actually. So study and working and understand how the marketplace over there as well in the meantime. So actually, it's very different from the way how the marketplace over there, especially when I return back to Malaysia. So I haven't been back to London for quite a while, actually. I think more than 10 years. So Gianluca, how's the situation over there, especially the district marketplace, the things going on? How's employability, for instance? Would you like to share with us?
It's like in terms of the broader context. Yeah, I think the UK as a whole is living a bit of a difficult time. I guess some the challenges that a lot of the global economies are facing. So we have been in some form of kind of recession, if you like, for a little bit of time with high inflation. So that means that obviously people have less money in their pockets. And then
Gianluca, when you mentioned about recession, right? What is the percentage which is in the total, which is seen 2024 in terms of recession? Because this is something to do with also the local career development and also the economic. And there's many prospects actually in this argument. So what is the percentage?
I mean, we are not in a technical recession, meaning looking at the numbers, it's not there is negative growth. It's just there is no growth, I guess. So I think what we've been experiencing for a few years, post-COVID and, a few of other kind of global conditions is that lack of growth with, some, increasing price around produce, food and energy. So you have a situation where you're lacking growth, but then inflation, which is quite high year on year, month on month as well. So that's why I think, there is a bit of a challenging period for the UK and our districts as a whole, because as I was mentioning earlier, people have less money in their pockets, which means they have less money to spend into, the high street and in our districts.
What is the local government response to such a situation? Since it sounds to me it's quite struggling in terms of inverted comma. I mean, people are living the local. So what actually local community, which is township management, what do they do for those are these kind of so-called unemployability, as well as more importantly, what is the market development over there, and how's the situation? How the local government support that, and probably in the national level as well.
Yeah, I mean, so from a national point of view, you have now a government that is focusing on growth. So from a political point of view, the thing there is acknowledgement that economic growth is needed in order to provide, additional opportunity. Local government, I think, we've been in quite a kind of, difficult situation for over 10 years. They don't have enough funding and resources to fund initiative to kind of, stimulate local economies. So I think, the work that local governments do is all around supporting, obviously, delivering social services for people that actually need, from, tackling homelessness through to social services and providing the basic services. So this is a bit of a kind of, context, like national and local context, because obviously with the focus on delivering basic social services, then when it comes to economic growth, when it comes to regeneration, when it comes to investing in local areas, that is something that other organizations have taken on as a responsibility.
Yeah, I think this is the core discussion for today. Business improvement district locally. I think yes. Let's set the scene, Gianluca. I think I look forward to this discussion. BID. This is but it works really well, especially in UK, this part of the world. So I think in Malaysia, still quite. Which is a novice, in terms of which is a business improvement district, and also probably is for majority of the people don't understand how it works. I think this is a good topic, especially we are aligning with this World Urbanism Day for today. Okay, let's set the scene before we get into the dialogue.
Cool, let's do that. So shall I take you back even out of the UK and let's go to the start?
Go ahead, please.
So business improvement district as a concept, they started in the 70s, in 1970, in Toronto, in a little neighborhood called Blair West Village. And essentially what happened is that property owners within this neighborhood within Toronto in Canada, they identified an issue, which was the lack of investment taking place within the kind of, downtown area. So they came together and they created this mechanism through which they could all invest together into their own area. And then, a few years later, the whole concept developed in the US. So the whole of North America has been kind of, setting this trend, if you like, or in the 70s. And then kind of, fast forward a bit, 30 years later, in the early 2000s, here in London, at that time, the mayor in London was Ken Livingstone, set out a pilot to actually explore the idea of introducing business improvement districts in the UK. And so that was there in early 2000s. So what the key element that was identified as a barrier was the lack of legislation. So they created this pilot scheme through temporary legislation to see whether there was a concept that it was actually transferable from North America into the UK. The pilot scheme was successful, and the very first bid that was actually set up in the UK was Kingston first. So Kingston is actually within London, and first because it's the first bid in the UK. And then, the industry was then fully established back in 2004 when the UK government introduced permanent legislation. And then, let's say 20 years on, obviously, we are, I would say, well-established industry with, I think, 350 BIDs across the nation and around 70 in London, in the capital city.
Fantastic, Gianluca. This is a good historical context, a little bit of contextual understanding. I think is really good to set the leeway for the dialogue, and especially to the audience out there. I think, especially in this part of the world, this part of the region, not many people understand BID, how it works. So thank you very much, and this is really good setting a leeway. Okay, let's set the. I just bring into the context first before we go into the dialogue. Right. Business Improvement District, BIDs, reimagine urban areas by focusing on branding, sustainability, and creating a sense of belonging, often through a bottom-up, private sector-led approach to urban regeneration, which is you talked about that earlier on. They help revitalize city center by implementing projects that increase foot traffic, boost economic performance, and improve the public realm. Through Business Improvement District, BIDs, so-called, typically revolve around governance, funding, community impact, that's including social equity and inclusivity, and the types of improvement and overall effectiveness. So, Gianluca, what exactly is a BID and how is it established? Just now you talk about that. How does it impact to the current practice? How are BIDs funded and managed?
Yeah, so BIDs in the UK, first of all, are a bit of an exception because our model is funded via occupiers. So it's the tenants that are within the properties of the district. So across US, Canada, and other countries where this model has already been established is the property owners. Yeah. So keep in mind that the UK, our funding mechanism is through the tenants, the occupiers. So in terms of, Business Improvement District, we are basically not-for-profit organizations, so almost NGOs that are fully funded and led by businesses within a specific geographical area. So we literally define the geographical area of the district, and anybody that any property that falls within this district with some more technical things that I'm sure we're gonna get into it, but they all pay an annual membership, an annual levy. It's called levy. I think one of the kind of key feature of Business Improvement District in the UK is that we are actually democratically elected. So every 5 years we have to go to ballot. So it's a formal process and managed independently, whereby each business owner within the districts gets a vote. And us as an organization, we need to achieve 2 majorities in order to first be established and then to continue our work. So the 2 majorities are numerical majorities. Obviously, for example, in Brixton, we have around 600 businesses. We need to ensure that we have a majority of the businesses that vote, the numerical, and then the rateable value, which is a little bit more technical. So each property is being assessed by a government agency with a RV. So we need to ensure that also a majority in terms of rateable value is achieved in order for us to be formally elected. And then once we are elected, then every 5 years, we need to go through this election. Because we could, obviously, if we don't do a good job, the businesses can stop supporting us financially, withdraw the support, and hence we can stop operating. So, and I think, as I said, is a very democratic, inclusive, and transparent model that we have in place. And the rateable value, which is, as I said, is a value that is being assessed by this government agency, is a key feature in our industry, because the levy that each property pays is related to the rateable value. So we charge a percentage of that. So the larger the business, the more they pay. The smaller the business, the less they pay.
Okay, let's look at the impact and equity. Who truly benefits from BID improvements?
Yeah, I think, there is I would argue a number of stakeholders and audiences that benefit from it. Ultimately, our job, given that we are a membership organization, so we are by the businesses and for the businesses, ultimately we need to deliver value for them. And we have a specific program that is being set out by the businesses and has been agreed by the businesses. And my responsibility and our responsibility as BIDS is to deliver value to the individual businesses. However, the way in which we deliver this program is around increased safety, for example, increased cleanliness, for example, increased activation and local events. So the whole idea is that by creating better places, better managed districts, then also the local residents, the local employees, and the local visitors or international visitors also benefit from the work that we do.
How can BIDs ensure social equity and inclusivity in their placemaking initiative?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously each area is different. And you need to look at also the context, like a place like London, there are major inequalities. And so the way in which always, we think about the topic is around, first of all, having a inclusive, diverse and representative business community. So bids are managed by the executive team, so which, for example, I lead, but also they are overseen by a board of volunteer directors that are drawn by the business community. So we have a structure in place that that aims at having a very diverse, inclusive board representation. So from that point of view, if you like, it's kind of embedded in our work and in our values and in the way we think, obviously. In terms of, the other challenges, obviously, those are, I guess, broader social challenges in terms of inequalities. So the way that we always kind of operate as an organization is to ensure that the program that we have of our initiatives and projects make sure that also maybe the smaller businesses or the the organizations that have less resources can also benefit from it. So our work is very much around ensuring that everybody that contributes within the bid area can benefit from it.
Okay, Gianluca, let's take it further a little bit based on what you just mentioned. Do BIDs adequately address broader social issues like affordable housing and economic inequality?
I think I would say no. And in terms of, being honest, obviously our remit is not around building houses and building, it's not around that. Our focus is to create high streets, downtowns, city centers that are inclusive, they are well managed, they are safe, clean and green, right? That's our responsibility, I guess. So from a housing perspective, those are responsibilities that fall within the local authority, central government and local government. It's also fair to say though that, our job often, for example, bringing in my experience in Stratford, which is in East London, which is an area of like major regeneration. Our work is also around advising developers who come into the area to potentially build houses, build homes, but also build student accommodation, for example. So I think, we don't have like a direct, if you like, involvement in that aspect. But if you like, because we believe we know our areas best, is around advising and supporting the industries that actually are operating within the built environment.
Okay, Gianluca, let's look at governance and accountability. How accountable are BIDs to the public given their quasi-governmental power?
Yeah, I think, I kind of touched upon a little bit earlier around our governance structure, but first key element is obviously the fact that we are democratically elected. So we have to report back to our businesses on an annual basis, against the business plan that we have in place, obviously. So we need to ensure that we actually deliver what we say. We goals. So we are very transparent in terms of the way in which the money is spent and what is it spent on. And then, as I mentioned, we are democratically elected, Stephen. So if we don't deliver, we basically, the businesses would not renew the membership, the financial supports, and hence we fold. But fortunately, like in both organizations, for us, we are on our third term, which means that we already had 3 opportunities to actually be renewed, and we had, really strong majorities. In terms of, the wider context, obviously, is all around building relationship with the stakeholders around us, residents groups, or, obviously the public sector and so on, around obviously the work that we deliver. So I think, like governance is a key positive and feature of us as an industry, because we are transparent. I am aware that some bids actually have even residents' representations within their own boards. And incidentally, even yesterday, for example, I had a meeting with local residents group that wants to regenerate a park that is underused, that is been suffering from antisocial behavior. So we are very much, if you like, a community-focused organization, and we will always support, people around us who care about our areas and want to make it better.
All right, thank you, Gianluca, to re-emphasize that. Okay, some claim that BIDs represent an innovative solution to declining public spending that uplift communities and boost businesses. Others insist that BIDs are wolves in sheep's clothing that displays small businesses and disadvantage and change community culture.
Yeah.
So in your point of view, are BIDs good or bad for communities?
I'm totally biased, Stephen. So obviously, I'm gonna say we are, good.
Yeah, of course, I know that. Yeah. But I still want to hear from you.
I'll explain why, I guess, because obviously, like I've been in the industry for 15 years, so like I'm fully embedded, and I truly believe in the work that we do, and I think like bids have evolved over the last 20 years in the UK. So a few years back, the key word of the industry was additionality. You were touching upon it, right? A little bit earlier. Like it was all about delivering additional services to the district, to the areas. Over the years, given that there has been less and less public funding available, and the delivery has kind of sadly decreased, this is where we stepped up, I guess, and had to fill that gap. So we've taken on a number of services. And I think, the whole ethos hasn't changed. It's about changing places for the better. And as I said, the key priorities are safety, cleaning, greening, branding, also building, civic pride around the places we live. So I think, like bids are a force for good, because we know the place well, we care about the place, and we actually have the knowledge, relationships, and resources to deliver good work. So in the work that we do in a place like Brixton is always kind of being associated to we call it the G word, gentrification, which is, what you were touching upon, this kind of, obviously process for which, people that have been traditionally having businesses in Brixton or living in Brixton, feel like, they're being pushed out. I feel like, like we as an organization, for example, in a place like Brixton, we've done well because our values as an organization are around supporting the traditional businesses that make up the whole core value, the core district of our area. So bids, in my view, good bids are able to ensure that, those traditional businesses that have been part of the kind of, social and economic fabric of the area are actually supported.
When you mentioned Brixton, I still have some images, but it's really a really long time ago. I think they were most probably when I was young, I think 30 years ago. It's really a long time, 30 years ago. Okay.
I thought you were going to say 5 years ago when you were young.
No, I mean 30 years ago. I mean, Bristol was quite a rough place when I was young, when I was in UK. But I think it looks different nowadays, especially with the context and the support from the BID concept. So I think it changes a lot. And also I get to heard of some of my so-called good old friends, they talk about Brixton. It changed a lot. So when I was like in the southern part of London, like Brixton, like Elephant and Castle, it's a really rough place actually when I was young. So, but it's really authentic. I like that, but it's quite rough actually by the end. But I believe there must be some changes according to what you just mentioned. But you are also managing Brixton yourself, and I believe there is a lot of changes. But I would love to visit London, which is the coming years, so to see what is actually the difference. What is the difference from how I used to see it? 30 years back.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's even you have an open invite and you can visit us in London anytime.
yeah, I love to, because really,
yeah,
I love to go back there. But of course, not for the time being, because there's a lot of things that's not quite, which is in right order politically. Okay, so I believe, especially Brexit, so it make a lot of changes for the entire UK economics. And also politically, also a little bit, quite, especially all this immigration, a lot of all these kind of issue things. So that's the reason why I said probably not for the time being.
Yeah,
it's a bit chaotic. Actually, I heard about that a lot. Okay, okay. Let's look at the. Since like you talk about the good or bad for communities, so I like to know how BIDs impact property values and rent, especially in the two areas you are managing at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of challenging and complex kind of conversation around the increase on rent and property values. I think you were touched upon the fact that maybe a few years ago, 30 years ago, let's say, or 20 years ago, Brixton was suffering from these reality maybe and perception, right? And I think as obviously things change, Brixton is become a really successful place. It's a destination day and night. It's like, consider one of the kind of, like cool spots in town for nightlife. We have a lot of, amazing music venues where people come and travel from even abroad. So Brixton has become a destination, and it does, to an extent, still suffer from a potential kind of, reputational issue around, safety or the perception that people have around safety. But things have improved, and if you like, it's kind of, a perfect connection that you made that really, Stephen, around the fact that as places become more and more successful, more and more attractive, inevitably rent goes up, the rent values go up and property values will go up. So it's always this kind of, fine balance that, we are kind of, we have to manage, if you like, because obviously now that Brixton has become for quite some time a destination, we've seen also a lot of businesses that maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago would not have even thought about coming into Brixton. I give you an example. Soho House, it's like, major global brand. They actually came to Brixton a few years ago. So it's a success story to an extent, right? But actually that means that, the values go up. And this is why actually, us as an organization, we were established back in 2014. We were funded by the kind of, traditional businesses to ensure there was a mechanism that was actually campaigning, lobbying, and working on their behalf to ensure that the kind of, like high-speed change that was taking place for them was also taking them within the journey instead of leaving them behind, basically.
Well, this is how the BIDs impact residents and the people experiencing the homelessness. Put it this way. Okay. According to the research, sustainable sources of funding for investment in green infrastructure have become increasingly difficult to identify due to centralized government financing cuts in the UK. Although local government, as traditional normative funders, have adopted innovative approaches to capital and revenue spending, there remains a significant gap in how and what resources are supported. BIDs are one set of stakeholders that potentially have a role to play in addressing funding deficits. So as subscribers fund a subscriber fund the government. Sorry, not the funder government, the funder organization. They work at a local level to enhance economic prosperity, as well as delivering social, cultural, and ecological enhancement in identified urban areas. So let's look at the funding and services. How are BIDs funded, and how does the funding model ensure sustainability?
Yeah, so bids are funded through this annual levy that is paid by any business that is within the district. So as I said, Brixton 600 businesses, they all pay this annual levy that goes into, like, let's call it like a shared, like a joint bank account. And my responsibility is to ensure that that money is then distributed across a number of initiatives to ensure that we kind of deliver against, the needs. So namely safety, cleaning, place branding, events, and a number of other services. So it's always a fine balance because the resources are limited anyway, and you also have to keep in mind, Stephen, that we represent cross-sector and cross-size business community. So from creative businesses to retail, hospitality, traditional shopkeepers. So every single business has a different set of needs and also has a different understanding or definition of what value is. So our role as BIDS is to kind of, ensure that the program that we have in place delivers values for each business, regardless of the sectors or regardless of the size. So that is always, kind of the challenge. In terms of sustainability, I think, that's kind of, big area. Each bid would have a greening program or sustainability program. I think it's becoming more and more challenging because, as you kind of already set out, a few years back, there was a bit more intervention from the public sector and more funding, which was able to unlock. We were able to unlock funding and then, more opportunities. Sadly, there is less and less of that money available. So we need to become more and more creative.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Creativity is important actually in this context. Okay, in furtherance of your mentioned, what specific services do BIDs typically provide beyond existing municipal services? In terms of creativity, when you talk about creativity.
We got to get creative. When you have like a relatively small budget, but big ambition is always. So from a safety perspective, for example, we employ additional security ambassadors or street team that actually patrol and monitor the area. So they report all sorts of issues or assist residents and visitors or people in need, for example, but they also engage with the businesses. We do additional cleaning for the area, literally jet washing, public spaces, for example. We put on events for residents and the community to come together. So that drives footfall and spend for our local businesses. We do a lot of work around attracting more consumers, for example. So, for example, consumer-facing website, social media, also branding. Branding is a big part of the work that we do, and we want to ensure that we using social media channels to kind of attract businesses. We also have, for example, a program of free training for businesses, seminars. We offer discounts and subsidies for the commercial waste. We do a lot of lobbying and campaign, as I mentioned, with elected members, politicians, MPs, or the local government. And we work across different stakeholders as well. The police force, for example, the transport authorities. So we kind of, if you like, the glue that brings different partners together with a focus on a specific area. Okay,
let's look at the community and social impact. how can BIDs engage with the diverse local community, including residents and non-ratepayers, for instance, in the placemaking process?
Yeah, we do that in different ways, I would say, meaning that we have this direct responsibility towards our members to deliver services, which is the main focus. Obviously, as an area, we need to ensure that the residents and the community that are part of Brixton actually are very much embedded into our thinking, because obviously it's local residents, it's local employees and visitors that come and spend money in the area ultimately. So our work is around literally assisting and supporting these groups and these communities as much as possible. We, for example, have a community fund where local stakeholders can tap into with some, financial support, for example. But a lot of the work that we're starting to do with the resident communities is around lobbying and campaigning, because we share similar challenges. Safety, for example, is a key one, right? With, the rise of antisocial behavior, for example, and challenges around mental health and shoplifting in the area. So residents are very much victims of these, as well as businesses. So often the reasons why people come together is because they have a shared problem. And this is kind of, one of the reasons why we're also collaborating with residents. But also, like mentioned earlier, it's not also around just safety. It's around, for example, greening and how local parks are being utilized. So it's very much on, I would say, problem-based kind of, solution, problem and solution, if you like. So they come often to us because they see us as like a very flexible, agile mechanism to solve problems. And in fact, Stephen, one of my always key messages around bids are always born out of problems. We are not born out of love. It's because if there is a shared problem in an area, that is going to focus people, and people are going to come together to solve that problem. And this is why absolutely.
Okay, let's take it further. What, in your point of view, what role can BIDs play in broader social issues like affordable housing and the local minimum wage, for instance?
I think we have to be clear in defining our responsibilities, because it's been one of the key success, in my view, of our work and our industry, is that we have a defined program that we need to deliver against. So when it comes to these issues, obviously we have views, and I think obviously around paying fair wages and creating better working conditions is a direct kind of a responsibility of our businesses. But as organizations ourselves, we don't have a direct involvement, Stephen. So even when it comes to housing, for example, that is definitely a public sector responsibility, and we are very happy to stay out of it.
Okay, great. Let's slightly change to the effectiveness and the evaluation. How is the success of a BID's placemaking initiative measured?
Yeah. So again, I think for us, the measuring success is always a complex topic that we often debate within our industry. My view is that you should measure individual initiatives differently. For example, if we do a public facing event, is about the numbers of people that attend versus actually cleaning a street, and you see the before and after impact, for example, right? So I will say that given that we have such a wide program, we need to ensure that some KPIs and some measurements are in place per individual initiative. But ultimately, Stephen, as I was outlining at the beginning of our conversation, we are an elected organization. So ultimately, if we do a good job, people are going to vote for us. Yeah. If we don't do a good job, we're not gonna get the support, and we're gonna be stopped.
So you're not doing a good job, get out of here. Next. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's look at the broader context. Can the BID model be successfully transfer internationally, given different local contexts and the governance regimes?
Yeah, I think there has already been many examples of the BID model being embedded into other countries. So I mentioned Canada, US, UK, Ireland. So a lot of the English-speaking world, like South Africa, Australia, have had already legislation passed, and they have like business improvement districts already operating for quite some time. I think, there is always the potential of the model itself to be transferred across different countries. I'm aware that in East Asia, there are some kind of interpretation of the model, but I agree with you, thinking there's a lot of, cultural and social kind of conditions that you need to take into account.
Gianluca, you were mentioning the Western part of the countries. So
Yes.
it's mainly they are English-speaking country. So I think the transfer internationally, I think probably the audience out there wanted to hear how these transfer internationally, which is to the non-English speaking country, especially the Asia Pacific region, or more specifically like the Southeast Asian region, which is my part of the world here over here.
Yeah, I think there are like there is a bit as a model, as a concept, if you like, Stephen, which is like, what are we about? We are about bringing the business community together, stakeholders together, the public sector together. So the more like public-private partnership model, if you like, that I think, again, there are already some examples in East Asia around.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier on,
Right? So there is already that in place. And then there is the more technical element of the bid, which is basically a financing mechanism, isn't it? Because essentially we have a legislation that is making mandatory for businesses within a district to pay the levy, which is one of the key successes. I think for us, knowing that every year we can rely on that investment from the local businesses is key for the delivery of a long-term program. So as I said, I think, I understand that, in your part of the world, there is already buy-in from stakeholders around these type of partnerships. I guess each region, each country would have to look at their own legislation, at their own kind of, way in which, businesses contribute, and then, kind of create a separate mechanism. So I think, as I said, there is an element of concept and there is an element of the technical and legal side of raising the fund.
Okay, Gianluca, fantastic, great. I think it's a time to take a look at the question posted by the audience. Let's look at what do we have. Oh, we get quite a few questions over here.
Okay.
Look at the first one. I think first one I was talking about, remember, transfer internationally come to this part of the world. There is a question already posted. Does Malaysia need business improvement district?
That's a big responsibility for me.
Now we are a little bit more focused. Now is a Malaysia context. What do you think as a specialist yourself?
I think, if you, I haven't had the pleasure to visit your beautiful country. I've been only to Singapore, which is not far, I guess. But I think,
just cross the channel. Next time you cross the channel, you come and see me. Steve, when I'm over here, I come and pick you up.
I will do. We do a swap, Steven. So I think, obviously, if you have a high level of, urbanization and density within city districts, and if you have already identified a number of challenges, I think the beauty and the positive impact that bids have is around bringing businesses together, stakeholders together, and invest into their own area. So from that point of view, I think obviously is a model that, Malaysia and many other countries actually will definitely benefit from.
Okay, good. Let's look at the second questions. With the trending of sustainability, how to address greenwashing from the industry who overclaim themselves as a sustainable product and solution? I think we had discussed about that actually. Would you like to go into a bit more detail?
Yeah, I think it's always it's such a big topic, sustainability, because again,
it is.
Sustainability I think means different things to different organizations and different businesses. So I think, you know, we have limited resources. So what we do, we acknowledge the fact that each individual organization might already be doing a lot of work into their own sustainability program as a business, as an organization, in the day-to-day decision that they make within their operations. Obviously, what we try to do is to look at a place as a whole and try to create some conditions and solutions to make it easier for businesses to ensure that the sustainable choices are an option for them. For example, you know, we are closing some streets to like vehicle traffic, car traffic, and encourage walking and cycling. So it's part of, you know, like a series of events that we're doing. Or for example, we've been encouraging and done some pilot schemes in the past, use of cargo bike to deliver supplies to local businesses, for example. So I agree. I think there is this like, you know, greenwashing culture, but I'm quite pragmatic. So if a business needs, a business needs advice, we will provide that. We will put them in touch with the right one. But also we acknowledge that also right now in London, the UK, businesses, the focus is also on other kind of, you know, more important, not to say that, you know, like sustainability is not important, but sadly the focus, the resources are on actually ensuring that the business is sustainable from a financial point of view. So that is always a tension and a balance that needs to be found.
In my opinion, it's not just only sustainability, like what you say is huge, but I think also circularity is important to be able to revitalize. So especially nowadays, many economic prospects tap into circular economy. So I think this is the area we need to look into that as well. I think to respond to these questions, which is from the audience, number 2. Okay, I think the next question, I like this question actually. This is also the things I always look into that. May I know what kind of data the BID uses to detect areas, communities that require improvement? I like these questions. What do you think?
Yeah, so we do a mix of things. So we do the obviously, we know businesses know the area best. So it's based on the individual feedback, individual conversation, and individual input from the businesses, obviously. So our job is to go and listen to them. So businesses, and you know, ultimately these are people who spend the majority of the time within the area. So if they tell us there is a specific issue, we will then pick it up as a problem. So it's very much literally street level. That's how granular and detailed our work is. It could be that a public light is not working. It could be that a bin has not been emptied in days, Stephen. It could be that the gutter is not being cleaned and you have a little flood on the street, right? So that is like a granular, we go from a, if you like, data input perspective. But then we also go a little bit kind of more strategic and wide in our thinking, our delivery. And for example, we purchase footfall data and spend data on regular basis to understand how the district is being utilized, who is coming into the area, where they're coming from, how much time they're spending, how much money they're spending, so that we have a more strategic understanding of our area, and then hence deliver a number of initiatives that address maybe challenges around safety, around lighting, around cleaning, but also around, okay, Monday is always, you know, low footfall, for example. Shall we be doing some events on a Monday, for example? My point is we also take some decisions that are data-driven.
Okay, Gianluca, the next question, I think we talked about there earlier on, how the BID is managed by the board. I think you talked about that. And also, is the board members paid? This is the next question. Tell us something about the running of the NGO in UK model. But I think we talked about that earlier on as well. So yes. I think this audience I think I have the feeling this audience would like to know the structure, the model, how it works. Probably would like to see whether it can be implemented into the Malaysian context. So would you like to give some advice, please?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of, first of all, there is the executive team. So there is myself leading up the organization, and then obviously we all like paid professionals. and we do different roles from, marketing to operations to safety, cleaning, office management, and events management, all of that. So we are the paid, if you like, team. But then the board itself are all volunteer directors. So they are literally business owners, business managers that obviously operate in the area, and they volunteer their time, their expertise, the free use of space, because they care about the area. So they care about the area, they want to see their own district flourish, do well, and they spare their time, their expertise, their resources for free. So it's also, not only they pay financial contribution, but also, if you like, the other currency is time. So they volunteer their time and maybe the business space to operate. And then, every year, actually, we have an annual general meeting. So incidentally, tomorrow in Brixton and Stratford, we had our annual general meeting where a number of businesses put themselves forward and then are voted by the members, basically. And, we tend to have 10, 15, 20 owners that annually actually, volunteer their time. And I report back to the board every other month. So we have a relatively close relationship. Oftentimes, they make strategic decision around some projects, how the money is spent, or even sometimes we present them with options to say, hey, would you like to have, which options do you like the most? And then they task us to deliver the program on their behalf.
Good point. I think this is the kind of like framework you're doing it. So great. All right. Now, so now we are going to change gears a little bit. We have talking about and all the concerns that we have been discussing on the show earlier on. I would like you to be able to share your ideas and see what other listeners are thinking about that in a little bit. Place branding and city planning intersect through participatory processes that build a shared city identity by aligning its physical, cultural, and social aspects and its strategic vision. This co-creation allows a city to develop an authentic and resilient identity that supports its economic, social, and cultural development through integrated strategies. By involving stakeholders, these processes increase community buy-in. So you talk about that earlier on, and leverage residents as authentic brand ambassador. So from the implementation and processes point of view, how can a city effectively co-create its brand identity through participatory processes that engage all local stakeholders, including residents, businesses, and public institutions?
Wow, okay, big challenge, Stephen. Yeah, I think, the way in which I always think about, if you like, place branding and belonging and local pride is around ultimately values. So what I mean with that, I think we need to ensure that the values that they define a place are very clear and that everybody has a buy-in towards those values. In a place like Brixton, for example, is about diversity, is about inclusivity, is about justice, is about anything that Brixton has experienced as a place, right? And people connect to those values, right? So for me, having this transparent, open process whereby all the stakeholders can initially identify what is unique about the place, what are the values of that place, what has made that place, specifically that place, is key. Because you need to ensure that everybody feels that is part of something. So, and part of something needs to be first defined in my view.
Sense of belonging, yes.
Yes, absolutely. Because, I, for example, manage two different places. Like in Brixton, there is this incredible sense of belonging, of people saying, I've been here 20 years, I've been here 30 years. They care about the place, they belong into the place. Stratford instead, because of the geography, the layout, is a completely different place. It's a very transient community. So there are places are very different position in terms of their journey into like belonging. So Stratford still has to belonging because it's part of a transient community for now. So you also, my point of this example is you also have to identify where the place is into the journey. Basically, is it like a well-established traditional community that have been here for a long time, or is it like a new area, a new neighborhood that is being built? And then more challenging, what are those values? What are those kind of key features of that people feel around the belonging towards that place? So very, very broad, but I think I absolutely love these elements, because once you have identified the opportunities, the challenges, the values, that's where place branding comes to play, and that's where, if you like, the value can be added.
Okay, let's look at the challenges and consideration here. How can city ensure their branding? Just now you mentioned about the branding, so I'd like to take it further. How can cities ensure their branding efforts are inclusive and do not exacerbate existing inequalities, particularly by focusing on already well-served areas?
Yeah, I think it's being clear from the onset of the process what you're trying to achieve and who are you doing that for, right? So if you want to ensure that everybody feels included, then you have to have that brief very clear from the start, because by definition as well, a place is for somebody, right? So there are some places that are intentionally exclusive, right? There are some parts of London, maybe in the West End, right? Knightsbridge or Chelsea, that they are intended to be exclusive. Only people.
Nice place.
Right? Nice places, but not
very
for
elite.
everybody.
Yeah, all the elite places, just like Knightsbridge, Chelsea, Kensington, and all the elite.
Amazing.
Yeah, I've been there actually.
Right?
I know that.
But not for everybody, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not for everybody. Only people with like high income can afford to go and enjoy and experience those places, right?
Exactly.
So this is an example of like, who are you doing it for? And this is like the key question that cities, governments, and people that are in those positions need to think about. Who is that place for?
Exactly. So I think we need to look at the majority instead of looking at the minority. Okay. In your point of view, what are the challenges in managing public perceptions, especially when rapid urbanization leads to increased demand on infrastructure?
Yeah, it's always difficult, very, very difficult, obviously, because the whole perception kind of topic is very personal, I think. There are people that come from different backgrounds, different cultures, different experiences, and what they think about a place is biased based on their own experience, right? So I think when it comes to like place perception, again, I talked about Brixton, and you're like, I know that, 30 years ago, let's say you don't have yet a positive, impression of Brixton, right? How do you kind of work for that is the challenge, because it might take you another trip to Brixton. It might take you visiting some places. It might take me taking you around to kind of change your perception. So it's such a personal experience that is very difficult to address. But I think ultimately, like I always say, if a place is successful, if people want to come and want to stay, I guess. And I think, this is what we are trying to do as an organization. We're trying to build places that are sticky. So it's not just that people come here once in a while, but that people come back to experience more and more of.
Gianluca, my feeling about Brixton, I don't have a negative
good
impression. Actually, although it's 30 years ago, it was really, really long time ago. But I find that place is too rough for me, because during that time when I was young, because I was just a kind of little like teenage boy, went to UK, which is just because my dad was an expatriate over there at the time, and I would just grew up, spend all my time over there, just that because I was too young. So, but of course, I don't live in Brixton. I used to live in West Hampstead Finchley Road, that kind of area. But
Yeah,
of course,
posh part of town.
oops, everybody knows about it now. No, I just happened to, friends, hang out in Brixton, just go over there. So I find it's a bit too rough for me. But I like the authenticity of Brixton because there's a real downtown of London. There's a real London things actually. So I like that actually.
Good,
but of course, it's quite rough for me. But I had a good time, looking all this fishy stuff and doing dodgy things when I was young. So I mean, it's really good hangout actually. I mean, 30 years ago. Now I'm too old for that now. So yes, I mean, there's no bad feeling. It's just a bit too rough for me. But anyhow,
can I say because I feel a responsibility towards Brixton. It's not rough. It's just hedgy. And he has changed. So for anybody listening in,
I really want to see Brixton today because it has been a big gap 30 years ago when I was young. So I think I have the feeling there has been progress a lot, very progressive. The town very different because some of my friends told me that Stephen, you should come back to see London, especially Brixton, and very different. So then I was told about this. So there was quite a positive, which is a note there. So I take a note from that. So, okay, let's look into how can a city, the need for competitive external brand message with the authentic experiences and needs of its resident?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I'll give you maybe like a local context, if you like, because I think there is this element of like each place competing, right? I think you said that, right? And even in our own area around Brixton, you have other destinations. We are quite lucky. We are positioned in, as you mentioned at the start, in South London, in the London borough of Lambeth, which is an incredible borough because from north to south, you have South Bank, which is an international destination with international venues and theaters. Obviously, the London Eye, for example, is there. And then you work your way through to Waterloo, a major kind of, another kind of, transport hub, down to Vauxhall, known for like the LGBTQ plus night offer and offices, and then you go into Clapham and Brixton and south of the borough that also has a very, very different and very well defined offers. So I think and each actual area that I mentioned actually, Stephen, has a business improvement district. So although as a model, if you like, we have so many things in common, like the framework is the same, but the way in which these bids in these areas and these the offer is very much different. So you need to ensure as well that as a bid, you've got your key audience in mind. Who is Brixton for? Who is Clapham for? Who is Waterloo, South Bank for? So you need to understand who are the people that come into the area and spend money and time, basically. So that's why for us, we know that, for example, Brixton during the daytime is a relatively local offer. So we have outdoor market, indoor markets, people
beautiful
come and then nighttime is what makes also Brixton like a distinctive destination. So we know for a fact from data that 40% of the spend happens after 6 p.m. By proportion is one of the largest nighttime economy that we have in the UK. So we know that people come here to have a good time at night because we have amazing venues and restaurants and clubs and bars.
They have.
So that is what I was trying to say, is like we need to leverage what makes us unique, celebrate that, enhance that, and ensure that if you like, who comes to Brixton is very different from people that are gonna go to Clapham, Vauxhall, and Chelsea or West Hampton, for example, right? So we need to ensure we know well who is our audience.
Yeah, actually, yes, it is. But I believe this is going to be a really a different experience, especially nowadays. There are many changes now. Okay, let's look at the stakeholders' roles. What is the role of residents as brand ambassadors, and how can their authentic perspective be best leveraged in brand development?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously residents play a key role in each kind of high street downtown area, because they're the people that in a place like Brixton that is very residential area around the high street, they spend the money and time. So I think it's important to also recognize the role. I kind of define them or refer to them as business residents, who are the people, the businesses themselves, the people that work in the businesses, that also play a key part. So we always balance business residents, which is our kind of direct responsibility, with the residents, that people that are around the district. And with that, for example, as I said a bit earlier, is around, if you like, identify the shared challenges and opportunities that we have. So we have been working with a number of groups and campaign groups over the years, because we understand that we are actually suffering from the same challenges. So by working together, we can then have a stronger say when it comes to lobbying the authorities, whether it's the local authority, whether it's the police, whether it's the transport authority. We very much want the same things. Everybody wants to live in a clean and safe space, right?
Exactly.
So when we come together, we have even a stronger voice, basically. And I think, bids, to try and also bring it back to bids as well. We kind of feel a little bit, in my view, like a democratic gap, because there was not actual business representation of a place. So I kind of would go as far as saying that we are kind of play a very much a political role, because we are that elected member that is campaigning and lobbying for the interests of the area, basically.
The voice of the people, yes.
The voice of the people, whether they are business people, but also residents. But I think, that's why I think, we have kind of established as ourselves as a key player within the area. And that's why often residents come to us to try and to help them to solve some problems that technically is not our responsibility. But because we have this community-minded approach to our work, we will always try and help.
Okay, Gianluca, what is the relationship between place branding, place making, and community impact evaluation?
Wow. Okay. So I think, place branding is obviously, it's all about the marketing, in my view. It's all about trying to put the values that I was referring earlier into a package and celebrating that in order to attract people, So that's for me what place branding is. Place making is a slightly different, softer, longer term type of process, if you like, which is around all the activities of creating a cluster, is about creating a cluster of activities so that people can come back. So placemaking for me is around different, iterations and applications. So it could be like from greening to street art to additional lighting. It's all about kind of creating a place that is a little bit more in line with what people want, which is like clean, safe, attractive, and all of that, really. And then in terms of the community impact, is kind of, is trying to ensure that everything that is being done around branding and making has a positive impact on the people within that community, so that if you're a member of the community from a residence community and you come in the area, your experience of that place is a positive one. And for me, it's key that we develop these placemaking and place branding initiatives, because we live in a hyper digitalized world where in one click I can get my food shopping at home delivered, right? I can get my dinner delivered at home, right? In one click, right? So for me, we are competing with the digital world. So anything to do with the place branding and place making is about making that experience of somebody deciding to come into a physical space and spend the money and the time.
Okay, Gianluca, this is a great, thank you so much for giving us the time today and for sharing all of your expertise so well thought out of, and it gave us a lot of to think about as well. It likely spears some more questions, so it wouldn't be surprised me if you and I maybe met up again and have another conversation around some of the follow-up questions probably that I'm sure will be coming our way. So awesome. Thank you so much once again, Gianluca. I appreciate it. Thank you for being with us.
No, thank you, Stephen, for the invite, and absolutely felt it was a privilege to have this conversation with you, and I hope that I shared, something of value for you and the audience.
Yes, you do very much. Actually, I've taken a lot of notes, so I'd like to share this, which is with the audience later on in the bit. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. A little food for thought here. The success of this initiative hinges on the creation of authentic, inclusive, and resilient urban spaces that are valued by their residents. So good. That was a great conversation we had. Let's look at some of the few key away this evening. Integrated governance and collaboration. The first point I'd like to share with everybody: effective urban planning is not the sole responsibility of a single entity. It requires strong collaboration and place leadership among diverse shareholders and the stakeholders as well, according to Gianluca, including local authorities and private businesses, which is he emphasized that as well, often facilitated by the BIDs. Residents and community organization, this is referring to the UK model. BIDs as private-public partnership, which is emphasized by Gianluca, serve as critical middlemen to coordinate these efforts, ensuring a unified vision for development and management. Second point, authentic branding reflects identity. Successful city branding goes beyond mere marketing. It is a strategic process that must align with the city's authentic identity, history, and cultural legacy. Branding should reflect the genuine values and aspiration of the local community rather than imposing a generic top-down image, for instance. And to foster bright and create a more memorable identity for both residents and visitors. So the third point here is sustainability is fundamental. Sustainable development is a crucial, non-negotiable component of modern urban regeneration. This includes environmental consideration, for example, green infrastructure, resource management, as well as social and economic sustainability. Integrating sustainability into the city's core identity helps attract investment, improve the quality of life, and ensure long-term resilience against challenges like climate change, for instance. The next point is sense of belonging as the ultimate goal, which is Gianluca has highlighted earlier on. The primary measure of success for reimagined urban spaces is the cultivation of a strong sense of community and belonging among residents. This is achieved by creating creating safe, inclusive, and attractive public spaces that encourage social interaction and community engagement. When residents feel a sense of ownership and pride, they are more likely to participate in and act as ambassadors for the community's ongoing development. So the next point, which is the last point here for this evening, adaptability and equity. This is a key. Urban environments are dynamic and face ongoing disruption. For instance, economic shifts, pandemic, which is Gianluca mentioned it earlier on, which is the beginning of the show. The mechanism, he talks about the mechanism used to manage them, such as the BID model, must be adaptable and focus on equity to serve the interests of all residents, ensuring that regeneration benefits the broader public and not just specific business interests. In conclusion, ultimately requires a holistic, collaborative, and long-term approach are an ongoing integrated process where BIDs, branding, and sustainability act as interconnected drivers of change. The ultimate success lies in the ability of these strategies to create inclusive, resilient communities where people feel safe, valued, and a genuine sense of belonging. With that, Cross Discourse series is a live podcast organized by malaysiaGBC Academy from Malaysia Green Building Council, MGBC, in collaboration with Solar Energy Research Institute from the National University of Malaysia, UKM, and supported by Mila University. To keep up the show, go to MGBC, malaysiaGBC YouTube channel. There was our episodes of a truly incredible season we have lined up for you. So please be sure to like and follow our malaysiaGBC YouTube channel and wherever you watch and listen to the live podcast to never miss an episode. If listeners are curious to know more about us or find more information, please drop me a line. Email address as indicated on the left top corner of the screen. Till then, take care and each other. For those who are celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas to you and Happy New Year in advance. With all good wishes for 2026. That's the end of our live podcast in 2025. On behalf of malaysiaGBC Academy, we see you next year. Stay tuned. Good night.